last year's seminar that we did via this electronic platform. And yes, I'm the optometrist here at Optometrists, together with my wife, Charlene. And yes, we're a family practice. We do a bit of everything for everybody. We don't have a specific area that we really specialize in. We believe we can do a little bit of something for everybody, from spectacles to contact lenses to any form of lenses that you can imagine. So yes, Anita, as you quite correctly said in the beginning, I would like the people attending today's meeting to feel free to, at any point in time, if they have any questions as I'm discussing anything, if they can send that in the message forum to you as the host, and then you can just interrupt me and say, Martin, there's a quick question while you're busy with this, and we can stop and you can give me the question and I'll quickly answer the question for you. Is that fine with you, Anita?
That's 100%. Thanks, Martin.
Okay, magnificent. So, yeah, thank you very much for having me behind the camera again. As last year, is my lovely wife, Charlene. I just want to quickly show everybody. Here is Charlene with a mask on. So I'm going to be speaking without my mask initially. And then when I bring my receptionist, Caroline, in to actually do the practical part of the things, I will be slipping my mask on again. So please note, we are observing all COVID-19 protocols very, very strictly in the practice. I just thought for this medium, it would be a bit easier for you to actually see me speak without the mask on. So let me just quickly move to page 2. I was asked today to speak to you guys about how to take care of your eyes, and more specifically, how to take care of your eyes in relation to the use of computers. So I'm going to ask Charlene to just pan over here. I've made my very high-tech chart here with Martin's top 5 tips for taking care of your eyes in the digital age. I hope you guys can see it. I'm going to run the points through quickly. Have a comprehensive eye test at least once every 2 years. Follow the 20-20 rule. Relax your posture, eye drops, and blue blockers. So I'm going to tackle each of those points one by one. And yeah, so firstly, when you look at having a comprehensive eye test every 2 years, no, that quick eye screening you had the last time you had your driver's license renewed, that is not a full eye test. You know, in a full eye test, your optometrist is not only going to look just at what your vision is like with specs and without specs, but it's more important that we actually look at other things like your eye pressure to check for glaucoma and to check the internal and external health of your eye. But it is also very, very important to note that if you do indeed have corrective specs for computers or for reading, that you do use them when you're working on a computer, because that will greatly relax your eyes and put a lot less strain on your visual system. So I'm going to quickly call in Caroline, just to come and be my guinea pig, if you want to call it that, for this next few tests. Caroline? So Caroline, you can grab a seat there for me on the big black chair, please. And at this point, I'm quickly going to slip my mask on. So, everybody, this is Caroline Moss, our one lady receptionist helping us here at the practice. So the first thing I want to demonstrate to you is the test for glaucoma. So we do it using a special device we call a tonometer. There are 2 different types of tonometers that we can use. This is my preferred one. It's called the Eye Care. It's not the one that blows that puff of air that some of you may have experienced in the past. It's just, I like this specific tonometer because it's not so uncomfortable for the patient, if you can call that. So we use a special little gold-plated probe that we insert into our tonometer as such. So the probe has got a plastic round tip, so we're not going to be sticking anything into anybody's eye. It is really completely pain-free, I promise. Otherwise, Caroline would most certainly not be sitting here for this next procedure. So Caroline, you can just look at my screen on the TV And we adjust the top knob and there we go. Don't know if you can see there, but we got a pressure meeting of 17. I know it looks like 11, but it's 17. So that's a very good reading. And then we're going to go to Caroline's left eye. There we go. And 14. So Shalene can get that in for us there. That's the 14. So we as optometrists consider eye pressures below 21 as normal. Everything above that, we would, of course, recheck, double check, because we're not going to just rush anybody off to an eye specialist for possible glaucoma based on just the one test on its own. But a reading of 21 or below is normal. 15 or below is ideal. So in Caroline's case, she's a very, very classical case of someone without glaucoma, because the reading in the right eye was 17 and in the left eye it was 14. So those were great readings. All right, let me go to my next page. Okay. So I also spoke earlier about the internal and the external health of the eye. And for the external health of the eye, I use a special microscope. I'm on Shalene just to stand over here. We use a special microscope. This is called a slit lamp. I'm very privileged that my slit lamp actually has, in this section over here, has got a built-in camera. So that's not something that all optometrists have. The added bonus of this is that you as the audience can actually also see what I see. So I've already set up Caroline here for under her name and surname, everything, to have the procedure performed. So Caroline, I'm just going to raise your seat up for you. I would like you to please rest your chin in the bottom for me and your forehead against the front. That's perfect. And what I'm going to do now is I've got two different settings for illumination. That's my fine slit, and then we've got a big diffuser light. So I'm going to go with the big diffuser light because we just want to see what Caroline's eye looks like. Now, you guys will notice, again, I've got a little special screen here for safety for COVID, because I've got to take my mask off again. Otherwise, my optics will mess up. But this is to ensure that our patient is at all times safe. Caroline, you can just look at my right-hand side here. And now I want to show you guys something here. So this is Caroline's eye, and the light is not adequate. I just need to get a bit more light in here. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. So this is only under 10 times magnification. We've got a 6.4, a 10, a 16, a 25, and a 40 times magnification. But I'm just going to start off by doing a 10 times magnification. It's very, very basic. And we get lots of light on there. And that is perfect. Caroline, so just like that for me. Okay, Caroline, next I would like you to please look to your right-hand side for me, because we see a little something interesting here. We dim the light a little bit down. We bring it a little bit more into focus in a moment. There we go. That's great. So, very good. Caroline, you can sit back and relax with me. So I'm just quickly going to end this exam for now. So we can actually, I just want to show you guys, my computer is dead slow. Apologies for that. I'm perhaps being just a bit in a hurry. So here we can go full screen. Now, the amazing thing here is you can see what all the iris sphincter muscles look like, and we can even zoom in on it more if we wanted to. You'll see the clarity is of such a nature. I can even see the reflections of Caroline's eyelashes on her cornea. And when I go to my next picture, there we go. Here you'll see a little white nodule. This is known as a pterygium. It's very, very small. It's not a problem in Caroline's eye. The fact that there's a darker vein running to it is also not of a concern to us at all. But this is just to give you an idea of the magnification we have with these devices. And we just have so much more we can do with these tools than we could ever do before. So that was just under 10 times magnification. You can imagine what else we can see if we were to go up to 25 or even 40 times magnification. Let me just quickly squish my mask back on. Okay, so I'm very quickly going to stop here for the moment and ask Juanita, are there any questions from the audience so far?
Martin, no, I think we're all so captivated. We forgot to put something in the chat box. Please carry on.
No, that's fantastic. That's the effect we like. So this is just to demonstrate to you guys some of the external things that we look at as optometrists. So last year I spoke to you guys, I did demonstrate to you my fundus camera, which actually takes a picture of the inside of the eye. So I thought I wasn't going to bore you guys with the same thing again. But just to let you know, when it's not COVID times and we are allowed to come closer to people, I actually use this little instrument called an ophthalmoscope. And this we would use to manually, with me looking through it, look into Caroline's eye. Again, there we would look at the retina, and we can pick up things like macular degeneration, glaucoma, or burst vessels, blood vessels in the eye, all those little technical things. So the latter two things, the checking of the retina and the using this instrument to check the external health of someone's eye, is, in my personal opinion, almost more important than doing the refractive side of the eye test. The refractive is actually just one small part of what we as optometrists do. Right, so let me just move on. I just quickly want to make sure I've mentioned everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah, that's
Martin?
perfect. So, right,
Martin,
yes.
sorry, quickly interrupt. We have a comment in the chat box that says that it would have been good if you had a patient who has glaucoma just to see the difference.
Yes, just to see the difference in it, it would be good. The only problem is the moment we find someone who has contracted glaucoma, we have to immediately put them on glaucoma drops. And when they are on these drops, so this is actually a good point that is being raised here now, is how do we treat someone? If I did take a pressure reading, it was above 21. So let's say for argument's sake, it was on 22 or 23. I would recall that person a day or two later, and we check it again. If the pressures were still at 23 or above, sometimes we would find the patient's pressure just go up and up and up and up. Then we immediately refer that patient, because the longer they walk without having the correct eye drops, the more damage gets done to the optic nerve. So if we did have someone with glaucoma, it would be quite difficult to show you actually with the eye pressure, but the readings, you just get an elevated reading. And I must say, the last 2 times I actually picked up someone with glaucoma, the pressures were scary high. They were in the 30s. And then that's another good point you're actually also making, is with the fundus camera, I will show you, if we have time, when we finished in this consultation room, on my other on the fundus camera, just what someone's retina looks like that has glaucoma versus someone that doesn't have glaucoma. So we can get back to that if there's sufficient time. Okay, super. So my second point, the 20-20 rule. So the 20-20 rule simply requires you to take a short micro break every 20 minutes. And when I say a short micro break, it needs to be for 20 seconds only. It's not a good excuse for you to, interrupt your studies or anything. And that's where the abbreviation 20-20 comes from. So it's every 20 minutes for 20 seconds, you take a short break. And now what's important is during this micro break, you need to blink your eyes actively 10 or 20 times. And you'll see what I'm trying to explain is you really need to have an over-exaggerated blink. And there's a very good reason for that. The second thing you need to do is also look at an object that's at least 6 meters away from you. So where possible, look out of your study or your dorm room, out of the window, and look at something that's in nature, something that's far away, just to relax your eyes accommodation. And where it's possible, if you can't look out the window, what you can also do is you can have a very simple setup where you have a mirror. And all you do is you place this mirror in front of you, right next to your computer, and you have a picture of something, just even if it's just 3 meters behind you. You put a poster or something on, and every 20 minutes, you can then quickly just look in your mirror at whatever is behind you. Now, the lovely thing about doing this mirror technique is you take a 3-meter room and automatically you make it 6 meters, because it's the distance from the picture to your mirror and then back to you again. So you actually, it doubles that distance that you would normally have. So that's a very easy way to just relax your eyes. Now, as I mentioned before, there's a very important reason why I want you to almost over-exaggeratingly blink your eyes. And you need to do it 10 to 20 times, and that is to trigger a little gland that's located in your eyelid called the meibomian gland. Now, this gland secretes an oil-like substance called meibome, and this is a very small component of your tear layer, but an absolutely critical part of your tear layer. And this tear layer consists of three parts: oil, water, and mucus. Now, the water is more than 70–80% of the component. Your mucus is about 8 or 9%, and your meibomian or your oily layer is only 1%. So if there's a disruption in the secretion of meibomian or the meibome, then you're going to immediately have a problem with your tear layer. So studies have found that when most people perform concentrated tasks like working on a computer, they actually, where you would normally blink your eyes approximately 17 to 20 times per minute, your blink rate drops down to as low as 5 to 7 blinks per minute. So this reduction in amount of blinking causes your tear layer to break up. Now, the studies have also found that incomplete blinking of the eye takes place when you blink your eyes so infrequently, and the eyelids are not physically touching each other. Now, I'm going to ask Charlene to just move this way around again to my very high-tech images I've got here for you. This is the inside of a human's eyelid, and you will see are these little lines running down. So this picture was taken with a special lens that we put in our slit lamp. And so when we invert a person's eyelid, you can actually see it. So these are your actual meibomian glands. This A1 is a normal gland. B is for someone who has diminished glands. You'll see there's one missing there completely. And the other glands are sort of short. They're sort of stumped. And this last picture is of someone whose glands have completely gone shut. So now you can imagine if your meibomian glands are completely cut off, there's going to be no meibome coming out of your eye anymore. And then I also want to show you this one. This is when you talk about the block gland. So the gland physically starts at the top and comes down to the edge of your eyelids. There you can see. And same for the bottom. These glands all come up from the bottom and they open up on your eyelids themselves. So again, that's where my slit lamp comes in very, very handy, and we can actually evaluate a person's eyelids and their meibomian glands if we suspect that there's someone who's got some blocked meibomian glands. It is something that's a bit more advanced. I've got a filter on my slit lamp at the moment, but I'm actually waiting for a new filter to arrive, because we're actually looking at treating people with blocked glands to try and open the glands up by physically expressing the old meibome out of it. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick stop again. Jonita, any other new questions perhaps?
Yes, quite a few. All right, I'll start from the latest one. What things will help glaucoma patients who work on a laptop every day?
Eye drops. If you do have glaucoma, if you take the correct eye drops, that is the only thing that will help your eyes.
Okay, thank you. The next question, and this is a word I can't pronounce. As a keratoconus patient.
Keratoconus, yes.
Okay. As a patient with that condition, how often should one have an eye check? Is it also 2 years?
I would say no. Keratoconus is something it's a very rare eye condition, and it's something where there's a gradual thinning of the cornea, and because of that, a patient with keratoconus, I would recommend you see optometrist at least once a year, just to make sure that keratoconus is still under control. And most people with keratoconus, they get treated these days by having something done called cross-linking. And once they've had the cross-linking, very often a special contact lens would get fitted. It's called a scleral contact lens if it's in quite an advanced stage. Otherwise, we use a hard contact lens we fit. And that's because your cornea thins, it's to reshape the cornea itself.
Right, then this question was actually put in the beginning.
Yes.
Normally, how much do an optometrist charge for a test? I don't know whether you would like to answer that at the very end.
I can answer that for you now. The answer is there's no one correct answer to that question. Pricing is not regulated by the South African Optometric Association in any way, shape, or form because it's not allowed. It's anti-competitive. So each optometrist has to decide what their own pricing is. We, as a practice, have got a philosophy. If you belong to a medical aid, we will only charge what your medical aid pays in cases where we contracted in, and we are contracted to most medical aids. If you're a private patient who's not on medical aid, our fee is 490 Rand. If you shop around, you'll probably find there's guys that are cheaper than us. There's probably guys that's more expensive than us. I base my 490 Rand consultation fee on all the tests that we do. So glaucoma test gets done standard. Some opticians may charge you a lot less, but there will be these add-ons coming on. And if they use a slit lamp, they will add that. And if you use the fundus camera, then they will use that. We don't believe in doing that. We believe that everybody should get a proper, thorough eye exam. And we don't want to miss anything because we wanted to save you 10 or 20 or 50 Rand by not using one of the pieces of equipment that we have. Plus also, for me, it's also about the amount of time we spend with the patient. For us as a practice, especially now during COVID, we book our patients an hour apart. The eye test itself is about 45 minutes when we do from everything from A to Z. And then we leave another 15 minutes gap to have a space, well, obviously to pick frames, select frames, but we're also trying to not have our patients overlap because that's another part of the COVID protocol that we do follow. Yes.
Thank you, Martin. I have one other question here, but I think when you come to the drops,
yes, are we going to answer that question?
Yes, so good. I'll keep it back for a moment.
Right. So just to recap, guys, remember point number 2, the 20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, take a micro break for 20 seconds. Look out the window or look in the mirror at a post or something behind you and actively blink your eyes at least a minimum of 10 to 20 times. This will activate your meibomian glands and you'll have a much better ocular surface free of irritation. Right, so the third point, as that we discussed, is to relax your posture. So with posture, I'm referring to not only the way you are sitting in front of your computer, but also the height of the computer screen in front of you and the angle that the computer screen has in relation to your face. So I'm going to ask Charlene to pan again over here to my computer, and I'm going to, you'll see, when I'm seated in front of it, you want to adjust your height and your monitor, your chair height to your monitor, so that when you're looking straight ahead, your monitor needs to be below your direct line of vision. Dr. Google told me that it needs to be 15 to 20 degrees below your line of sight. That you don't have to go and sit there with the protractor and calculate 15 to 20%, but you'll see you never want your computer screen to be too high. You don't want it to be above your line of sight because that is inevitably going to cause headaches. It's going to cause a physical neck pain because you can imagine if this screen is sitting up there, you'll be sitting with your head tilted back, and that is not an ideal posture to be. You want to be sitting with your keyboard in front of you, your head at an ever so slightly 15-degree downwards gaze. And also importantly, when you look at my computer screen, you'll see it's not completely flat. It's ever so slightly tilted back again. This angle of the computer screen has to be, so it's basically when you are looking down with your face, you've got to be looking straight at that screen. It reduces glare from your overhead lights. That's one of the points. You also don't want to tilt your computer screen too far because then you're going to pick up your overhead lights, and that's going to exacerbate your problem that you have with the light. So the computer screen is a very, very important point. And also your monitor needs to be at least arm's length away from you. They say 51 to 55 centimeters, But just as a rough indication, just take your hand and stretch it out in front of you, because you don't want to be sitting too close to the computer screen either. And then, yeah, if you can adjust your chair, if your chair is too low or too high, you can play around with those heights. Oh yes, and then on the point of the overhead lights that I mentioned before, it's very, very important that you must have lights on when you're working on your computer screen. I know some students like to sit in this pitch black room with no lights on, and they think this is the best way to work, but I can tell you today definitively no. You must have your lights on, and it's preferred that you have low-level glare-free lights as your ambient light. This offers the best overhead illumination for working on your computer screen, and tone down excessive or intense ceiling lights by removing some of the light bulbs or your fluorescent tubes from their existing fitting. So you don't also want to be in the super bright illuminated room. You don't want to be in a pitch black room either. Find that nice in-between glare-free ambient lighting situation. Okay, I'm going to stop there very quickly. Are there any questions perhaps coming through that's pertinent right now, Unita?
No, just a comment that says, thank you for the position of your screen. Did not know that. And I must add yes to that.
Yes. And these small little things, I'm probably going to say things today that some of you may know, that you may be aware of. But oftentimes we've heard these things, we've seen these things, but we forget about it. And that is perhaps a good thing that I'm here today just to remind you of those things that you have forgotten. But the computer screen is very pertinent. Okay. Fourthly, point number 4.
Sorry.
Yes.
Martin, sorry, another comment just came in, or a question. I have a window above my computer screen. Should I close the blinds when working? And also, what about the distance of the screen when you are working with a laptop?
With a laptop, you are automatically working a bit closer. So with a laptop, it's due to the size of the screen on most instances that you're going to sit a little bit closer, but again, 50 centimeters minimum. Don't be closer than 50 centimeters to your laptop. It's too close. You're causing unnecessary strain on your visual system. As far as the question is concerned regarding the window, preferably don't close that window, because you may just want to slightly angle yourself that you don't have the glare from the window coming straight into your face. That just mustn't be blinding. I would rather suggest you put a thin curtain over it, because again, if you want to follow the 20/20 rule, that window would be ideal. You would want to be looking outside that window. Okay, so moving on to eye drops. So when you're now seated in the correct position in front of your computer screen is at the right angle, it's at the right height, and you've been taking your frequent breaks as per the 20/20 rule. Now we need to look at eye moisture. So as I mentioned earlier, it's very interesting to note that we have this row of specialized glands sitting at the top and at the bottom, as we showed and demonstrated to you earlier. Call them meibomian glands, and these glands are there for a good reason. These glands are responsible, as I said before, for the meibome, and now that it's been observed that you should perhaps, when you are concentrating, you don't completely fully blink your eyes. So there's a very interesting point. When your two eyelids come closer, when you do a complete proper blink, there must be physical touch of the two eyelids on top of each other. And it sounds funny, but you think, well, when I blink my eyelids do touch. But it's not the case when you're doing concentrated work. Now, this rule applies to driving your car, working on the computer, and reading a book. Anything that's a concentrated task that you're busy with at that point. So, and when you don't completely blink your eyes and there's not this physical touch, we call it an incomplete blink, and this leads to a poor tear layer, like I mentioned before, with the oil, the water, and the mucus, and this leads to a dry eye. So my preferred eye drops to be used for a person who's doing a lot of computer work is a drop called Visio XL, and the Sustain Complete. I'm going to ask Caroline to quickly pop out and fetch me a bottle of each, or a little packet of each, so I can physically show you. And also the, sorry, Caroline, this is the Visio XL, the Sustain Complete with the, and then the Optive Omega, that third new one we've got. So these drops I'm going to show you are the latest and greatest drops that's on the market. They are by far, in my opinion, the best all-round drops for your eyes. A lot of people like to use Sapphire Blur and IG. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Sapphire Blur and IG because they treat a red eye only through a process called vasoconstriction. And when you've got a dry eye, you want something that's actually going to treat your underlying problem, and that will already eliminate it. So I'm gonna show you here. Sorry, I forgot to bring it in earlier. And you'll see these are my three favorites. This is the Visio XL. And it contains, you'll see on the top here, it contains a coenzyme Q10. I know it's one of the new buzzwords these days. Everybody's talking about a coenzyme Q10, and it's a really, really, really good drop to use. The second one that's also brand new, that's I'm actually still, this is my sample box, is called the Optive Omega. Now, the UD just means it's a single use product. So we as optometrists like single-use products tremendously because there's no chance of eye infections getting re-administered. So if you have an eye infection, sometimes you use an eye drop. That eye drop, you accidentally touch your eyelid, and then when you use that same little container a while later, you can again get that same eye disease. So this is the Optive in the Omega format. You literally just break it off. You would twist the top off it. It's designed so it can squish back onto itself again to seal it. What's lovely about all of these drops is they're either not preserved, as is the case of the Omega-3, or the others have a special magic little preservative that when it's exposed to light, it actually goes from its, it changes its molecular structure. It's fascinating, and it changes into two inert substances. Usually it's water plus something else. So it's fascinating. And these eye drops, because they are not preserved, or because their preservative immediately when it comes into contact with air and light turns into plain water, it's as if it does not have a preservative. Why am I hammering on about preservatives? Preservatives actually causes a red eye. So it's important to have an eye drop that does not exacerbate your existing problem. And that's part of the reason why I've got a problem with Sapphire Blur and IG, because with those two drops, they do contain preservatives. So you have a red eye, you put your drop in your eye, your drop of Sapphire Blur and IG, and your redness goes away because it's done a vasoconstriction job. But then 30, 40 minutes later, when that vasoconstriction function has been completed and the efficacy of the drop is gone, your eyes become red again, or even more red. And you want to use another drop and another drop and another drop. So you've got this vicious circle that just keeps on perpetuating itself, and you're not treating the underlying symptom. So when you have a problem that you have an eye that's dry and you have been blinking sufficiently, because I'll tell you this from personal experience, sometimes when I drive long distances, I start to get a dry eye because my eyes in this stare phase and I'm not blinking, and it's incomplete blinking. And I follow the same 20-20 rule when I'm driving my car. Every 20 minutes, I take a quick break and I physically blink my eyes 10 times. And you will not believe how effective your body is. All of a sudden, the dry eyiness is gone and you can actually see proper again. Any more questions, perhaps, at this point?
Yes, Martin. I have to go back now. Okay, somebody asked for if you can repeat the 2020 vision rule, but I think you have just done that. And then is, I think it's more a comment than a question. When I was taking my learner's license, I failed the eye test twice, but passed the third time. So I downloaded an eye exercise app And I also didn't exercise when I read letters close and far away from me. When I did the eye test again, I got 20/20 vision. Did what I did really help, or was it a placebo?
It's a very good question. Obviously, I don't know what eye exercises this person did. And obviously, I don't know what caused them to fail the eye test. In most instances, a person would be a little bit nearsighted, or they would have a bit of astigmatism, and that would be the reason why they failed the eye test. So in those instances, if you are a little bit nearsighted or you do have a bit of astigmatism, then no amount of eye exercise is going to solve the problem. It could be that this person is actually slightly farsighted. And when you do a lot of near concentrated work as a farsighted person, your eye goes into a bit of a spasm. This we call a spasm of accommodation. And this will then, when this person goes and they want to do their driver's license test, because at the driver's license offices, it's a machine that you physically look into. And you look at a picture that's about 35 centimeters away from you, which is fairly close. Now, the moment that person does that and the spasm of accommodation reoccurs, then they would fail the eye test. And then if they did certain eye exercises, it could be that those eye exercises relieve the accommodation system, and that enabled them to pass it. Another thing I've unfortunately found with the driver's license department is the people conducting those driver's license tests don't explain to you, as the person sitting behind that machine, what they expect you to do. And that's often the problem. And I found it, people say to me, oh, Martin, you know what, by the third time, I finally figured out what this guy wanted me to do. Because you're normally looking at a letter, we call it a tumbling E. So you've just got to show in which direction the E, the legs of the E stand. And again, like I said, there are different tests that they do, and they don't explain to you, do you want to use the little knob that you have to point the direction of the E, or must you push a button to tell them you can see the E? They don't explain to people, and people often have to figure that out for themselves. And that is more often than not what I find to be the case, where a person failed it 2 or 3 times, and only on the third time they sort of, okay, this is what they want me to do, and then they pass it because they've realized what the person never instructed them to do. So what we as a practice again recommend to all our patients is, prior to going for driver's license test or your screening at the traffic department, come to us. We do the screening for you. We issue you with a special driver's license certificate that's designed for this purpose. You take that with, so in case you don't understand what they expect you to do and you fail the test, you've got my test that says what you can see. And Bob's your uncle, you'll pass it the first time around. Good. So
thank you, Martin. Sorry,
yes.
There's quite a number of questions here, so I think we must push on a little bit.
Okay.
How often should you take the eye drops?
The eye drops you take at least a minimum of 2 to 3 times a day. These eye drops that I like, that's what I love about the 3 ones I showed you earlier. Those drops you can take 10 times a day if you wish. You can take them 20 times a day, because you can't overdose with those drops, and there are no side effects whatsoever. So those drops, but a minimum of 2 to 3 times. I often find that people want to use an eye drop, but they only want to use it once a day. And then magically this drop must do the work of your tears. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. As you can imagine, as I said before, you blink your eyes normally 17 to 20 times per minute. So in a normal day, you can imagine how many times you get a little bit of meiboom excreted each time you've got a complete full blink of the eyes. But okay, so we're going to push on to the last point, and that is blue blockers.
Sorry, Martin. I still have a couple of questions on eye drops. I am an IT student and spend most of my time on my PC, which gives me frequent headaches. Would you suggest I use eye drops or blue light glasses? Okay, so that ties in with the next one. So can I just quickly go through all the questions and maybe you can answer? Will you
answer
remember
them as we go along? Yes.
Okay. Could you talk about Sustain, complete, please.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you know what that is.
That's the eye drop, yes.
Okay, and recommended, question mark. And the next question, how effective is Optofusion? And then the next one, oh, I have a lot of questions. Can you remember them all?
I've got them. I've got them.
Okay, and can you repeat the name of the third eye drop quickly?
Okay, right.
Are the drops available from pharmacies or only optometrists?
Yes.
In which stage of eyesight a person is regarded as having a disability and qualified to have extra time? Okay, that is actually something on its own, but
Yes.
that is at which stage would they qualify for extra time during tests and exams? And then please repeat, what are the best eye drops on the market? I need to take it down. And yes, and thank you, Siwe. She's put down in the chat the names of the eye drops. Good for you.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yes.
So yes, coming back to some of those questions as you've gone along. The first question was from the IT student and saying they get frequent headaches. Should they use eye drops or blue blocker glasses? The answer is neither. You should first have an eye test. If you've had an eye test, then you would know whether you've got a dry eye problem or if you perhaps need a blue blocker. So that is going to solve that issue. But eye test is quite pertinent because very often people who've got perfect long distance vision because they are far-sighted, but they actually need a specialized pair of reading/computer glasses when they are working on the computer. So that is something I don't want to, with my top 5 tips, I made those top 5 tips in mind that if you, and like I said, also in the beginning, that you would, if you have corrective specs, of course you need to wear that. The very interesting point would be to ask this IT student where the headache is located, because a location of a headache will give the optometrist an immediate clue to where the problem lies. Coming back to the Sustain Complete is one of my favorite drops. I'm just going to hold it up here again. So, Charlene, I think you've got it in focus there. This is it really is the all-in-one drop. It really works on all 3 layers of your tear layer, and it delivers a nano-sized lipid droplet across the eye to help to soothe and hydrate. Another question was from one of the people was with the Optive Fusion. Yes, that's also a very, very good drop. And prior to the Optive Omega 3 coming out earlier this year, that would have been on this shelf, on my list of drops. So if you have Optive Fusion, keep on using it. Great drop. If you run out someday and you need to replace it, then consider using the Optive Omega. That would then be the new go-to drop in my opinion. But it gets quite technical about which drops, because we get Optive, the Fusion, and we also get Optive Plus. That's the other one I'm thinking about now as well. So there's actually 3 siblings in the Optive range of drops. Same with the Sustain. There's Sustain Ultra and just normal plain Sustain. But it all depends on what your eye problem is. I'm just using these ones as examples that I know for computer use is going to be the best. Okay, so I'm going to move on to blue blockers because I see we are running out of time very quickly. So I've kept the best for last, or as some would say, the most controversial for last. And that's the blue blocker coatings and blue blocker spectacles that we can buy. So in recent years, it's been found that the blue blocker coatings are really beneficial to us as humans because it helps aid with reintroducing your normal circadian sleep rhythm, sleep pattern. And the blue blocker lenses will help to restore that. What happens is the human eye is susceptible to a very specific length of blue light. Now that blue light, and I'm speaking a correction here now, don't quote me on this, I think it's 470 nanometers of blue light. It's between 470 and I think 460, if I remember correctly, but I digress now. So what we found is when you are seated in front of a computer, a laptop, a tablet, a TV screen, your cell phone, that screen actually emits this blue light as part of its normal spectrum. And in your brain, there's a right behind your in between your eyes, just behind your skull, there's a certain gland called the pineal gland. And this pineal gland secretes melatonin. Now, in normal conditions, if you are on a farm somewhere in the boondocks and there's no TV, no cell phones, no nothing, once the sun has set, about 2 hours later, this pineal gland will start secreting the melatonin. You'll start to yawn, you'll start to feel tired, and you will want to go to bed. But due to us working almost non-stop on either cell phones or tablets or computers or watching a TV, the brain never secretes the melatonin because the eye picks up the blue light from your computer screen. It picks up the blue light from your TV screen. It picks up the blue light from your cell phone. And that is where your big problem lies. So that is when the study was done and they found, wait, we can cut out this very tiny little band of blue light and all of a sudden the circadian rhythms are reinstated. So in more recent times, I would say it's about 4 or 5 months ago, all of a sudden we made another very interesting discovery. And that is persons under the age of 18 should not have the blue light taken away out of their spectrum, because a person under 18 is in a unique situation where the eyes are still developing, and they're still in the process of becoming fully developed, and you actually have a case where if you have this blue blocking glasses worn by a person under the age of 18, that the eye does not fully develop, and there are other problems that goes with that. So fortunately, this was discovered not long after everybody's been wearing the blue blockers. And I think on today's talk, I don't imagine there would be a great many people that's under the age of 18. Most people will be 18 or older when you enter a university scenario. But if you are under 18 and you are listening to this, don't use a blue blocker. So you want to ask something, Unita?
The question of the one, I must go back there, where they ask whether the drops are only available at optometrist offices or in pharmacies.
It's these drops are freely available at all pharmacies as well as all optometrists. It's freely available and they are not scheduled. None of the drops I've shown you are scheduled. They'll be on a schedule S0, which means you can buy them anywhere. It's not a problem.
Okay, and then I also have a question here in the chat box. Is turning on your laptop's blue light filter screen mode good enough?
Yes, it is absolutely. It's good enough. You will immediately see the effect that has. And we still use the blue blocking coating on lenses very, very frequently, because you'll find you can turn it on. Most of the modern cell phones have got a blue blocker setting on the screen as well, but that's just your phone and your laptop. What happens when you're watching TV? What happens when you quickly grab your tablet or your laptop that does not have, or not the laptop, your normal desktop that does not have that function? So we still use blue blocking coatings a lot, and they really, really work very well. And I just wanted to mention that one of our companies that produce these coatings, it's a company called Essilor, it's a French company. They have actually produced a special Crizol coating, or the special anti-reflection coating called Crizol for Kids. So it contains a blue blocking filter, but it does not block the blue wavelength that children need for their eyes to develop fully. So why is the issue of blue light such an important one? And why is it so important when you're doing computer work? So over and above the whole circadian sleep rhythm that we've just spoken about, blue light scatters more than other colors of light due to its shorter wavelength. So just in nature, blue light has got a much shorter wavelength than red light, for instance. And that short scattering wavelength will be picked up by your eye and by your brain as having a scattering effect or a glare effect, and this will also give your eyes strain. So that's why the blue blockers are still a good idea to use. Blue light also bends more when entering the human eye, which can result in blue light naturally focusing in front of your retina and not on the retina. The eyes then need to constantly refocus when looking at a blue light source, and again, this will lead to eye strain. 2 final points. Blue-violet light is highly energetic and can reach the retina. So research has shown that blue-violet light is a contributing factor to age-related macular degeneration. Now, this age-related macular degeneration can indeed have a very devastating effect on your eyes. You'll have a loss of your central vision, and the big problem with it is this damage that's caused by the blue light today. You're not going to see the effect today. You will only see it one day when you are much, much older, and when you are in your 50s and your 60s. That's when this macular degeneration will all of a sudden pop out, and at that stage, there's not much that the eye specialist can do for you. Finally, my 4th point on the blue blocker is not all blue light is bad. As I mentioned before, blue turquoise light is actually a natural stimulant and is beneficial to your well-being. So yeah, that is my story. So I'm going to refer you quickly back to our 5 points, 5 tips for taking care of your eyes. Have the comprehensive eye test at least every 2 years. Follow your 20/20 rule. Blink your eyes. Make sure that your posture is relaxed. Your screen is at the right angle, at the right height. Use the right eye drops when you do have dry eyes, and use blue blockers when you feel they have the necessary relaxation effect on your eyes. Right. So I think we'll have another 2 or 3 minutes for 1 or 2 more questions, Junita.
Yes, thank you, Martin. It seems like, it's so going that we're going to keep you here for a while. All right, I have 1 or 2 questions still. The one is, are the coatings on glasses standard, or do you need to, oops, there my screen jumped.
No problem.
Or do you need to specifically request its application from your optometrist?
You need to specifically ask for the application. We don't, as a standard, put coatings on all spectacle lenses. For the simple reason, people say to you, but everybody can benefit from this coating. Surely everybody must have it. But the answer is no. These coatings, unfortunately, they show dirt more easily because there's no glare or reflection hiding any dirt or any finger marks on the lenses. So certain people in certain professions, I would highly advise against having coatings on their lenses. So it's unfortunately not a case of one coating for everybody, and you get several different other coatings as well. So as a standard rule, I normally ask my patients if I'm making them a pair of reading glasses or computer glasses, I'll give them options of 3 different types of coatings. A standard anti-reflection coating that a person will benefit from, the special one called HVLL, which makes your lens more scratch and resistant and more water repellent. And then, of course, we'll ask about the blue blocker. But again, blue blockers is not something I'm fond of just dishing out to everybody. I normally first go through a questionnaire and ascertain if the person will benefit from the blue blocker. Very often, people will benefit from having just a normal coating, but any and all coatings is separate. You've got to ask your optician to actually apply that to your lenses.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Then I have 2 more questions and 2 comments, and I think we can end with that. Oops, and there's another one. Oh, anyways, do you have to use the drop on both eyes if it's one eye that gives you trouble?
No, you don't. You can just use it on the eye that's giving you trouble, because remember now, we are only treating. It's the same to ask. Listen, if I have an eye infection in one eye only, am I going to give the eye drop, the antibiotic in both eyes? The simple answer is no. You only treat the eye that's giving you the problem. You're not going to use an antibiotic as a prophylactic. So you're not going to put an eye drop in the eye. Look, you're not going to cause any damage by putting it in your eye. So if you want to put it on, fine, but you're just wasting your money.
Okay. Now we still have 2 questions left.
Good.
Can one go for tint after having the glasses for some time?
No, unfortunately not. I was an optical dispenser first before I became an optometrist, so I know a little bit more about how lenses are manufactured. So when they manufacture a new lens and they want to put this coating on it, that surface must be absolutely pristine. There cannot be any small scratches of any nature on the lens, because when the coating is deposited on top of your lens, if there's a slightest, tiniest little scratch, there's more of this coating deposited in that area, and you will actually then have physical lines sitting on your lenses where every small little imperfection is. So unfortunately, no. It's also, there's the way that the coatings are performed. It goes into a special dome. Each lens is put into a little holder, and that to hold that lens in position, there's little clamps, and they've got to go across. So if my fingers, this is the lens, the clamps go over the lens, and so when you do the coating, once you take that lens out of the machine box, so a lens that's already been cut to a frame, you've worn it for, even if it's just a week, no. I've done it. I've actually, on a patient's insistence, I've actually sent a lens in and we got it back, and it really, the patient was not happy at all. It looked atrocious because you've got these little clamp marks all over the lenses. You've got these fine little scratches that's now sort of been, you would have seen them normally with the naked eye, and now they've been brought out. So that's the answer there.
Okay, and now a question that may open a whole new webinar. In which stage of eyesight a person is regarded as having a disability and qualified to have extra time during tests and exams? Can you just maybe give us a very short answer there?
It's a question, unfortunately, I can't just give a short answer to. There are several factors you have to consider. I know, for instance, a lot of people will feel, well, if I just have good vision in one of my eyes, I should still get extra time. And that's not the case. If you have one eye that's got 6/6 vision, you will be functioning as effectively in an exam situation as a person with 2 working eyes. Because interestingly enough, many people don't realize that. But when we are reading, when we are walking around in nature, we don't always use both our eyes. We have 2 eyes simply because we need to judge depth. And depth perception is something that can be taught. You've got 2 eyes because you want to judge 3D. But when you write in an actual exam, if you have one eye with 6/6 vision, meaning you've got perfect vision in that eye, that would automatically exclude you from getting extra time. So you also have to look at not just a person's 6/6 visual acuity, but their field of vision, because there are instances where people suffer from glaucoma that we spoke about earlier, and that person's got a really diminished field of vision. So that person may have 6/6 vision in a very small band in the middle, but yet that person would be allowed to get extra time because they've only got a 5 or a 4 degree instead of a 150-degree field of view. So, like I said before, this would be another lecture all on its own to really go through all the things you have to consider. But you really have to have extra special circumstances before you can justify saying you can get extra time. And then you open another can of worms, because now you've got to determine how much extra time is this person eligible for. So it really is, unfortunately, it's not an easy one to answer just straightforward.
Martin, thank you so much. I think if you are okay with it, I think I'm going to ask people if they have any more questions that they maybe email me and I can send it on to you. Would that be okay? So I'll post my email address in the chat box, and anybody with any more questions, you are more than welcome to contact me, and I'll forward it on to Martin. And then just to round off and to wrap up, There's a lot of thank yous, Martin. Thank you. It was very well helpful. There was, thank you for an informative presentation and a lot of thanks in between. And thank you, Martin. And there was one other one of the best talks I have ever attended during COVID.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we thank you. I don't know, Siwe or Mrs. Deleboom, if you would like to have a last word of thanks for Martin.
Janita, there is nothing more I can say. Martin, we are so pleased to have you in the unit. You help us a lot. Thank you for the information that we have shared. Thank you to all attendees that have attended this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.